I'm a writer and a researcher, and I've been working with different methods and materials to create environmental stories: drawing, making, walking. Persephone's Footsteps is a reimagining of the Persephone myth for today. It's a response to climate breakdown, and it's a map that can be used to explore any city. As Persephone climbs higher, first to escape the underworld, and then to escape the polluted streets of the city, the listener must climb higher to hear more of her story. There's only one copy of the work. The map is hand-drawn, and it's a vertical map, made up of maps at different altitudes from the world's most polluting cities. Inside it, there's an Arduino and an altitude sensor, so it can tell how far up you go. The following audio will give you an idea of what the work's about, but it's not the same as walking through a city with the map in your hands and having the story respond to the route you choose to take. For every person who takes the story out into the world, the experience is completely different.
The underworld isn't far beneath your feet. If you crouch and place your fingertips against the hooded skin of the earth, you're almost there. It doesn't take much to slip through a crack or fall down a rabbit hole. Persephone left on a Tuesday, after 3,000 years of always doing what the story said. After 3,000 winters beside Hades, who was now more stone than God. He couldn't follow or even turn away as Persephone began her final ascent. The paths up are ever shifting. Persephone read the way in worm castings and the beat of rain, in bell song and boot clack. And as she climbed, she wondered at what people bury and forget just beneath their feet. Beneath yours now, are there rib bones, or silver coins, or broken windows without views? Persephone was soil-packed and struggling to breathe just beneath someone's feet. The old roots tried to keep her down. It was too soon for spring. So Persephone made false blooms from sharp-toothed glass, slivered brick, porcelain limbs, and bent nails. Her garden would be rust-thick and plastic-wrapped. She forced a new spring out through a crack in the pavement of a city like this. Is there anything growing where you are now? There's always something growing. A dandelion, a shadow, a block of flats, a goddess sprouting between tarmac and curb, bringing spring out of step, out of time, out into the city streets. Persephone was stuck half under, half up. She shook the soil from her eyes as people strode by in a foot crash parade that filled her mouth and ears with fag ends and dust. She shouted for help. People pretended not to hear her over the road thunder and the rain. Stalactites of grime formed in her lungs. She felt heavier than she had in the underworld. 2 crows pulled her out in the end, accidentally, while fighting over who would pluck her eyes from her head. Persephone bound her roots around her feet with no idea of where to go, except up and away from below and before. A premature spring raged into bloom beneath every step she took. The celandines were rust-edged, primroses plastic-packed. Swallows skittered overhead. "Let's blame them," she said to the crows. "They brought spring early, not me. They can take my story. I don't believe it anyway. It couldn't happen in a city like this." Do you know the paths of the city? They're always shifting, whatever the map might say. Persephone walked up, but the ways up became ways down as streets tipped beneath her feet. The whole world had been packed into the city maze. Sweet and greasy food smells lapped against illuminated windows and mirrored walls. Every turn led to another, until she realised the city was not going to let her go. She crept into an alleyway, following a string of graffiti to the backs of people's lives, taking her hushed riot of bluebells and broom with her. She slept for weeks on a sodden mattress, ate at an upturned crate, and won a pair of trousers from a man who called her Joan. Persephone filled the pockets of her new trousers with every feather she found, in the hope that they would remember how to fly and lift her away. At dusk, the city is more porous. The paths shift again. Persephone set out, stepping carefully over cracks, searching for higher ground, terrified she would be trapped in the city all summer, until she misstepped over a crack and fell back down to the underworld. The heat of the day hung in curtains of shimmer and filth, and she might have managed to escape if she hadn't stopped to scry the signs. Gold exchange, help the aged, vape escape, Roots Cafe. Night grew from the ground up and filled her pockets, weighing her down. Behind her, the buildings played grandmother's footsteps. Persephone asked the signs for help, but they couldn't speak for themselves. She asked the shadows for help, but they were too weak and too few in the bleak city night. Finally, she approached the statues, those doppelgangers of old friends, and asked them for help. The statues gathered at a crossroads, where their stone reflections ricocheted between mirrored building sides. The city paused, waiting to see what the kaleidoscopic army would do. And Persephone slipped away unseen, climbing higher through the night of a city like this. Are you high enough? When you look down from above, you can make toys of a city. It's easier up here to be a god. With one breath, Persephone felt she could rearrange the city as she chose. Buildings could be bent apart to let in light and make space for the tangle of plants she'd brought in her wake. Persephone scaled a solitary tree, trying to get higher still, and took up residence in a magpie's nest. As she squatted amongst the leaves, the long summer burned on, burned through pavements and skin, brought floods of rain to fill the gaps between everything. The city swelled and the smells of the underworld joined the streets. The ground was rising to meet her. She looked for a path in the swirl of dust and ash and all that should remain buried, not burned, and caught hold of a plume ladder. Halfway up, a frenzy of swallows became tangled in her hair. Torn between their inner clocks and the long call of summer without end, they made circles in the smoke. Persephone remembered the feathers in her pockets. She scattered them on the wind. And as the birds dived to catch what they'd lost, she climbed even higher, over a city like this. Look up. Persephone sits in the sky, just above the city, just beneath the stars, just where the spume and jetsam of human life comes to rest in the air. And she pulls it all around her, makes thick blankets of it. She waits for a winter that won't come again to a city like this.